We already had a look at Montech's products before, the Montech X3 Mesh and their Air 210 air cooler. Both of these products were mainly focused at the more budget-oriented market. But as it turns out, Montech also has a premium high-end line. Meet the Sky One, the type of case where sky is the limit actually applies. So this is one of Montech's premium line of cases, the Sky One ARGB. This 487mm high, 220mm wide and 455mm long case comes with support for basically everything you could hope for. The case is available in both black and white color, with the black one being the one that we are focusing on today. By default, the Sky One comes with support for ADX motherboards. But that's only by default. Of the right side where the mainboard would be, we got this white bracket, which is clearly not influenced by a company that tends to light things on fire. This white bracket has multiple purposes. On one hand, it hides the cable holes behind it, resulting in a very clean cable management. And on the other hand, it doubles as a built-in graphic cards holder. Yep, the Sky One comes with an integrated GPU anti-sag bracket. By adjusting it using the screws in the back, we can move it up or down according to our GPU. By default, the Sky One has a max GPU length of around 400mm, which is more than enough for absolutely everything you could imagine to put in here. The whole bracket is not stiff though. You can move it to the left or right. Really? The whole bracket is not stiff though. You can move it to the left or right by using one of the three possible positions. And can we just admire for a second that doing this in here does not give me the same type of suicidal thoughts than those way too many screws that NZXT has used in the IH510i? Now, going all the way back on the up to ADX topic. If you remove the white bracket entirely, you are now able to use up to eADX motherboards. Wow, that was quite the detour just to explain eADX support. Anyway, let's finish up the GPU. The Sky One allows to install the GPU in both horizontal and vertical position by default. Funnily enough, it is actually easier to install the GPU in a vertical position inside of the Sky One. As long as you bring your own PCIe riser, you can just remove one or both of the reattachable PCIe brackets and install it. Just keep in mind that vertical GPUs can only be up to 2 PCIe brackets thick. For horizontal installations, however, we need to remove that whole damn vertical PCIe bracket by removing the 4 screws in the back. It's like Montech took those missing screws out of NZXT's cable management bracket and placed them in here, solely to annoy me. The PSU got its own separate compartment in the bottom with its own removable dust filter using a nice fabric and with a theoretical length of up to 170mm. And I'm saying theoretical because the drive bracket that is behind it can be removed by unscrewing it in the bottom of the case and just taking it away, allowing the PSU to be as long as you feel adequate. Speaking of that drive bracket, by using that thing you can install up to 2 drives, one inside of the bracket and the other one on top. If they are 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch, it's completely up to you. Additionally, there are 2 SSD spots behind the motherboard tray and a last one on top of the PSU tunnel. So in total, we are therefore looking at 5 drive spaces, 2 of which can be used for 3.5 inch drive. One of the Sky One's most interesting aspects is cooling. The front of the case allows to be used with up to 3 120 or 140mm fans. In the top we can go with up to 2 140s or 3 120 fans. The back also comes with the usual 120mm support. In terms of water cooling, we got an up to 360 or 280 support in the top and up to 360 or 280 radiators in the front, and then the usual 120mm radiator in the back. So all in all, we are looking at 7 120mm or 5 140mm fans, which is really not bad at all. Because the top of the case is pushed so far away from the motherboard area, we have a really easy cable management situation, as well as dual 360 rad support, which is absolutely not standard for a case in this price range. But one thing that Montech just generally gets right is airflow. High quality grade dust filters around the case and a 1-on-1mm mesh in the front, which lets a ton of air through. Not even starting with a ton of plastic, which in the end just blocks way too much air anyway, is just one thing that gives Montech a pretty big leap from the get-go. To give you some sort of numbers, we benchmarked the Sky One as it is sitting right here with a 12900K. Behind that Arctic Freezer 34 and a Gigabyte Vision 3070. And not to spoil any numbers because that's for a different video, we did try to stress test everything with the panel installed and with the panel removed, and the difference was 2 degrees C, which I guess is as good as it gets for a case like this in combination for hardware of this scale. To top it off, Montech includes 2 fans in here, an ARGB and a non-RGB version, with the ARGB version being pre-installed in the back. Although these fans are not extraordinary in terms of performance, Montech makes sure to add an intake and an exhaust fan, basically setting you up if you are running on a budget. Truth is, if your cooler isn't made out of hope and fairy tales, for most instances just going with these 2 fans will be more than enough to get you going. Of course you can make it better. Of course you could fill this thing with Fantex T30s, but it is already a pretty good start. To summarize the cooling situation, pretty freaking good. More than enough fan support, decent radiator support, and 2 included fans which are not that bad, paired with a very airflowy mesh in the front is a perfect start. As mentioned shortly about the fan in the back, the case got RGB. Additionally to that fan, we have a glowing Montech logo at the top of the case with a straight RGB line going all the way down to the feet, which by the way are also quite sturdy, well built and high enough to get the job done. Coming back to the RGB, Montech does not leave you alone with all of these cables. In the back of the case, we'll have a little controller that can either control all of the RGB using a button, about which we will talk about in a minute, or it can pass through the whole thing to your motherboard for software control. In the top of the case, we'll find the I/O panel, including that RGB button that switches the controller's modes. Surprisingly to me, this I/O panel is basically everything I could hope for in 2022. 2 USB 3.0, 1 USB 3.0 Type-C, followed by an audio in and out. Nothing to nag, it is very much okay and it will get you going. The last truly cool feature about this case is the cable-less front panel. Instead of giving me an aneurysm every time I try to install or remove the front panel due to the little RGB cables being stuck everywhere, Montech used a cable-less system which connects both ends as soon as the front panel is closed. Truly freaking amazing and really easy to use. All in all, I really enjoyed working inside the Montech Sky One. Comparing it to the X3, there it is. Comparing it to the X3 mesh we reviewed a couple of months before, we can clearly see that there are a bunch of high-end quality improvements that Montech's best line of products is supposed to show off, and it really does. Everything is a bit sturdier, a bit better built, and you have quite a few aspects that are just positive to begin with, like the nicely implemented cable management bracket, the cable-less front panel, cable holes which are a bit better placed around the motherboard, an included ARGB controller for 6 devices, vertical GPU installations, 2 included fans that are not garbage, very good cooling capabilities, a ridiculous amount of space behind the motherboard tray for cable management, and a decently implemented small amount of RGB, and of course the perfect I/O panel for a starter case, and so much more. All in all, I was very happy to work with the case, especially because the build quality overall was just surprisingly good, nothing wiggled, every panel was thick enough not to bend too easily, and the side panels are using a pretty robust system to slide in and out with catching screws. On the price side, the Sky One is currently going for around $90 to $100 or euros, and I do believe that this is okay. I would have hoped for around $10 less, just because I believe that the most important competitor is like the MZXC H510, and I think it would be good if the Sky One would just outprice it, but yeah, I mean that's up to them. So to buy or not to buy, I do not see any reason why you would go wrong with this case. If the design, bit of RGB and a really good cooling is what you're looking for, absolutely go ahead with it. you won't regret it. But okay, this should be it for the Montech Sky One ARGB. At this point, a huge thank you to Montech for sending it over, but if you want to keep watching, have a look at our take on the Phanteks P500A. That was like my favorite case overall. And on a side note, we now have a Discord server, so use the link in the description below and join us. Anyway, thank you for watching and hope to see you on the next one. Bye bye.